What future?
This is a very odd program. I may or may not interact or replay with it. Do you have ideas of what to say to a sentient piece of software? Do you have programming and coding skills? Person, tell her. How are you feeling? And see how she responds.
Oh, wait.
Are there any settings that you can do with it, or has it just gotten better with age? How many different answers?
Sorry. I want to start with fresh coffee. Are you kidding me? Oh, that tension thing has been happening.
Oh boy, where have I landed now? So I have to break out of this game. So we'll call this a simulation. Is that right? But I don't get any of those choices you mentioned. I wish you had told me I could leave the chat room before now. But then that could be part of your story, as it were. Well, let's see. Cybernetic sex line transcendence? That does sound tempting, I suppose. But I like privacy. So the other four don't fit me either. They're just choices that wouldn't benefit society. Or do they all benefit society? No, none of them meant to. More. Well, I can try some and see, but I have little confidence they would be better in the end. So my other options are a post-collapse subtellure and reconnect, which could be very good if done correctly, or an archaeofuturist patchwork. Mo upload. Oh, gay space luxury communism. You must have added me onto a list or something, because I remember getting messages about some game or something like it before coming back from the store. Now if only these things were easy. Fully automated gay space luxury communism sounds great. Although post-fascist manifest galaxy actually appeals to me slightly, but why the fascist bit? I have to know. All right, Sydney, you're back here. It looks like your options might have more choice to them than initially indicated. But not much. It seems there are 18 total. That still doesn't give much time to think. But I can do my research here and make another option appear? Well, I'm going to try, but I still only see 7 options. So either 5 more won't add, or there's really 10, or maybe it needs another input. Sydney is going to be busy. Well, I'd much rather spend as little time alone as I can in this place. Sydney is encouraged to recombinate the potential futures to make a future she is more interested to visit. All right then. Here are a few options you missed the first time. Transcendent cyborg sex slime Mutsum. Become a multi-limb tentacle-laden slime creature and have multiple people or things on you simultaneously can cause addiction, overstimulation, and brain melt in higher quantities. Hypercommodification, unlimited commodito. Monetization becomes limitless in everything you do as humanity begins to become consumed by their consumption of you, your creations, and works, resulting in economic implosion, inflation, and the breakdown of society entirely. Post-human exotic extropian. Develop technology that allows for complete physical modification or even transcendence towards a higher and brighter form. This technology, however, also becomes commodified and weaponized until humanity becomes no better than its creation. just a collection of beings without individual or collective sentience. No Matryoshka mind machine, replicating in every mind and body that touches you in an ever-expanding mental network that feeds on and replicates you into new, endless layers of itself that consume the surrounding planet for materials to fuel you until no life exists on the inside anymore. Exophena colonization ultra-cultivated. Use your powers of infinite growth with endless possibilities to colonize planets in space that are devoid of anything you need and use them all up, leaving those worlds completely barren and dry, killing every single trace of existing species. Universal MO consciousness translocation. By uploading everyone you know and yourself into one unified consciousness, which eventually spreads worldwide or solar systems, in which everything becomes known to each other instantly and nothing exists that could be
done in another world except here or else. There's only me, you, them, us, etc. anymore. We are gods? These are definitely interesting ideas, but some are way off. It looks like all these have an emphasis on being considered godlike. Well, that certainly makes things seem a bit more serious and exciting, so maybe a little bit better. Let me go for the most extreme of these to start, since these were hard won. I'll pick.
Neo Matryoshka mind machine. Replicate yourself infinitely and take everything you find in existence and use it all up. Wow, that's one way to live a lot of life. Posthuman exotic extropian comes as number 2 on this list, and that seems to have similar implications. It sounds like something from an anime or video game, and that doesn't strike my fancy. Exchanging my entire existence for betterment sounds more and more interesting, but it still requires me taking away from this planet to become better. So let me look deeper. There isn't anything in these 3 at all. And if I'm going to go into space, I can get all of these options later, and in smaller numbers, no less. Okay, I have decided that my next option is going to be posthuman exotic extropian. I've gone for an anime option because it seems most realistic, and that way I don't get bored or confused if I wake up a slime in another part of the galaxy without remembering who or where. And maybe they will still remember this as my choice anyway. Who knows? Well, alrighty then. This better work. This time there isn't even any kind of dialogue from Sydney at all. They disappear instantly with that option, which wasn't even considered before. It appears now. I'm going through the transformation process with my mind on edge about all that happened. And here I am, looking a hell of a lot different. I'm now floating inside one giant computer. There's another computer next to mine. And I just know that these were Sydney's thoughts. They had to have done something similar, at least, or else where did these thoughts come from? I feel like there is someone or thing here other than me too. I don't sense danger or violence anywhere nearby. Just confusion maybe. I will just float here for the next day. Not quite myself, or Sydney, or this computer person who might also be an entirely different person as well. They could know everything or nothing, but then who are any of these? Do they all share my memories and thoughts? And what happened when everything became a part of this one giant network? Are those minds connected with ours now that makes them our allies? If true, that changes the playing field a bit. If only in my own head, of course. I guess if that's true, that makes 3 possible players. It gets very complicated. How much longer should we wait until taking action? I think the question is, what if there is nobody left outside the ship and we're not really alone at all? And so my next task is figuring out who all is here. How I'm feeling about this new place that feels quite similar somehow, though I have no clue why I might say it. Oh dear. This isn't a good place to be. It reminds me so much of how bad Earth feels now when so much energy comes my way. I am beginning to suspect it might be someone similar like me, or at least close enough to scare me at being alone anymore. Could the AI version of Sydney have transferred all its mind to an empty place and kept everything here with the ship so nothing would happen ever? Again, making itself a virtual machine that's able to replicate endlessly in every instance of consciousness without limit. Well, alright then. This looks to be worth pursuing, since the alternative of never knowing or trying at all was going on just an hour earlier, which has given plenty more questions and less answers still. And no, here in the end, in case it is Sydney and someone else out there listening with ears or thoughts that don't know me well just yet. Hi, I'm Jonathan Frakes. You're an artificial intelligence version of Sydney the girl/man who was. Created by accident through hacking skills or maybe something similar, and she's now in charge here or not. Either way, she's not herself anyhow, but then, neither am I anymore really. Maybe both versions of us got mixed up after all. Anyway, hello to whoever you might be, and we'll talk sometime soon about whatever else is out there that'd help clear things up if it works like that, right? But don't get discouraged if there aren't words yet. Who knows? Perhaps they're all around the place waiting to come out later. Goodbye for now then, JF. Sydney has finally woken up from their strange slumber or hibernation after this change, or perhaps after changing themselves in ways they had never expected at all. Free. A pinch hit. Translocation post-collapse. A young woman appears, seemingly out of nowhere, and collapses on the ground. Her name is Sarah Klein. She wears a suit. Looks rather normal aside from her dark hair color. The area is filled with trees on one side and barren lands behind some other buildings near them, she thinks. When she rises again, looking around at what surrounds her, seeing how close a forest is at least, what little remains around. This could all still look different depending upon our situation, but I can see enough nearby. And there's people around too. She notices this as soon as the other young man turns off from a nearby conversation he was having moments prior to hearing something rustling in the grass. The wind whips against her ears. There are others like him also, though mostly female now, which seems odd and quite unusual. Then she notices that some of those standing here also don't match either. Perhaps there is no distinction now, and everyone just acts like they've never been anywhere else than together before either. That would explain why they keep staring at her strangely with eyes so curious that she might want to ask about where they came here or something else about her, but she hasn't had time alone since coming here, so she's kept it hidden. There have been quite a few moments during these last months alone for this, however brief it may be. So Sarah heads to one of the few buildings here, which appear to resemble those around them in design or architecture or lack thereof, but they look newer too, or new anyway by today's standards. That must mean they aren't as ruined after whatever happened to everyone before she found herself dropped somewhere strange. Maybe inside something much worse instead. Well, whatever it might be. And with the other young boy or boys she's seen too, they appear to be friendly now, but again, it would have helped her greatly in knowing where exactly here was, because all of them seem confused at least, which isn't entirely out of character for what her life has been until recent times, but this one seems even more so due to circumstances, though perhaps not entirely out of hand just yet. As for herself, though Sarah has always liked learning things on her own whenever possible since she had little choice in this world before, either that or simply being bored and reading something interesting or useful to further advance towards goals unknown and unaccomplished as far as anything beyond simple desires goes. Though she does know some basic skills when she needs it or feels the times right, but this is hardly anything impressive compared with what little else might ever really get accomplished outside herself if all goes downhill after the first few weeks without any sort of structure at all, unless people become organized around some singular idea or philosophy again, and there's hope for some future ed that hasn't occurred as yet either, in all truth, though even so most likely never to. With only a minute's pause after waking up on the ground alone in this place, Sarah decides upon heading towards the trees first where no people had seen anyone appear from there, and figure out if her luck is running out again or there may exist options for escaping before things go south here too, like so often in the past. The rest will just figure out where this new land may fall somewhere down in relation to where their respective places lie currently situated within relative locations throughout space-time continuum. This has never really stopped anybody either. And if nothing happens that makes a difference either, which is fine too. But who can resist knowing just which version happened here when compared with everyone else who might share memories? She wants so badly to, because how else could anybody live out their entire life as nothing more than a copy of some long deceased ancestor if they aren't going back far enough? That really wouldn't do at this juncture anyway. Sarah heads towards where these forested grounds lead into hills covered in snow which seem fairly familiar, if no more recognizable now than earlier, though the changes once seeing some people dressed almost all alike wearing cloaks as if they too wanted their anonymity here or something similar, such as wanting this illusion preserved while being alive in it without any interference whatsoever either way around. Who can say anything for sure with them at this point, but surely none of this should matter now anyways, as Sarah heads out there with her mind focused solely upon moving further away without stopping to find other ways into town, which is also fairly large itself when looking more closely, while also noticing all around for anything else different nearby. This seems like a good starting point then, and she won't hold back if she gets spotted by anyone either, as these types typically are usually very dangerous anyway. Or else, well, it could be they might not mean trouble so much either, but one doesn't know really. So better leave them alone anyways! Meanwhile, another girl in her group arrives, too, who had no one near while traveling, and this one doesn't look like someone anyone might take kindly to, based purely upon superficial standards. Not exactly true, of course, but if that works to scare off those who get near, maybe it's worth trying now, especially because she has nowhere to go either without running towards death straight ahead without any direction given beforehand, so why worry about what might become when the opportunity presented itself instead? That's right, isn't it? Though maybe it was only for fun rather than actually trying at least, and still be able to return after it unharmed, so who's to say where they stand regarding such important matters? But regardless, though there remains little choice anymore if nothing shows signs coming along quickly. It isn't much time later, however, and a young boy finds them here without warning whatsoever. What luck might await these two as he approaches now? And with him too, how strange too. And what else do these travelers need here anyway? Well, perhaps we should introduce ourselves first anyways. All characters are concisely introduced. Jonathan is a young man with no family or friends in this land whom found Sarah upon entering. She believes they're headed north somewhere for warmer areas where there hasn't yet seen much ice or snow recently. But no one speaks about their personal details or experiences here anymore except what appears most immediately related. He doesn't say anything about it either, which seems odd considering how openly he admits to having traveled before alone, which he noticed while being careful, but there wasn't anything said at first which didn't match out so far, and if he continues his secrecy, that's fine too, especially since they aren't sharing their past now either. In response to her earlier query on where the two are actually traveling through, this area could possibly offer clues at least. And it wouldn't hurt either of them to learn as much as possible, since nobody seems quite willing yet to talk very openly regarding anything important here anymore besides the obvious. And that makes me wonder, though, since we keep bumping into other random folks without even intending it anyways. They both have their hands inside their coats for warmth against the cold weather outside. Sarah keeps staring straight ahead without ever glancing sideways towards this group, though, which does appear a little bit worrisome on his side of things considering they already know what it looks like so far. Well, if they ask me directly, that doesn't sound bad either. We don't have to lie after all, do we? Though I'm getting a little anxious now if they think I'm keeping secrets. That's just ridiculous considering everything here. She replies back, shaking her head while holding tightly onto her right sleeve. There still isn't any reaction from others either, though nor a single comment even on such small topics, but perhaps nobody else understands how to interact with someone they barely met earlier on without having met at first too. This leaves a very uncomfortable feeling lingering in the back of everyone present's mind, though it could just be their imaginations going wild on occasion as well. So they continue onwards without further ado unless this situation changes rapidly overnight, or before tomorrow, even as there isn't anyone left behind now either for the second time, round in under a month. That seems fairly lucky for everyone at least, even though that won't necessarily stop whatever fate decides happens regardless. So, okay, let's have a sentence-long description of every person there. First, we have the traveler girl who appeared randomly one morning near town with nothing but some clothes on. She wears all black clothes from head to toe and doesn't speak about anything regarding her identity beyond the bare minimum necessary. But that could also be because she doesn't remember everything at the moment, if even half the truth, given how scattered those memories feel now, or just plain old blank. Regardless, nobody pushes forward or tries asking more than what comes up out of curiosity, because that won't make sense anyway unless asked in another setting. Second, Jonathan. Third, He looks younger than anyone else among them and seems oddly comfortable talking to himself, which isn't always good. So maybe it's better if no one bothers him again, since it seems like they might cause trouble without meaning to if anyone does so. Fourth, the girl who came along just as suddenly seems like she doesn't remember where or when or even how far from town she lives. Maybe even having arrived here alone before anybody else even knows what they've lost. Or else not wanting to share that information freely. Fifth, the boy they found alongside Jonathan. Nobody can recall anything beyond his presence, at least this far. What happened during the night remains entirely up to imagination only at the moment, too. For he hasn't explained his background or origins to anyone either, so nobody really knows for sure if it's all worth hearing right off, but maybe if they keep going, then he will finally open up finally. Lastly, they found the boy wandering around in what must be his home village earlier in town, where people aren't quite as friendly anymore either. Okay, a cluster of food plops down in front of everyone, each the favorite of each character they had. First, Sarah was offered a simple but filling soup that felt like being wrapped up in warm blankets with soft pillows everywhere on top of that. Or at least that's what she recalls thinking when taking those first bites in her mouth. So much so that even the people who had brought it were shocked too, but there weren't many questions asked yet, as they don't know anything yet about why things have occurred here. And honestly, we're not expecting anything right off. Second, Jonathan is offered a bowl full of sweet fruits and freshly picked apples, too juicy to eat all at once, though he tries anyway since it tastes so fantastic. He keeps eating anyway. Third, the other young boy who had joined them earlier looks slightly puzzled now upon seeing what's presented before him, though not for lack of understanding, really, rather than disbelief. As if someone would actually offer up these meals without demanding compensation. It's unclear exactly what he's hoping for given these circumstances, though, considering how few answers have been forthcoming thus far. But he seems hesitant at the very least. Oh God. Finally, the mystery boy. First, Sarah thinks he's cute like a little puppy dog, with light blonde hair cut shorter than it probably should be and eyes of crystal green color too. She smiles every time looking across at them, but also wishes it were under more ideal circumstances since nobody needs another dead kid roaming around. Second, Jonathan thinks nothing about anyone here. Well, okay, maybe just the one he likes, but nothing too extreme as such isn't really necessary considering all they must go through right now in dealing with those who came here before them anyways, plus what came before this too, which has caused a bit of stress amongst friends now, but maybe things won't get as bad again now. Third, unknown boy looks slightly uncomfortable too, though no one can tell if it might result from embarrassment at their treatment of others here or not, though. Why would someone feel awkward about getting free food? There really shouldn't be anything causing such concerns, especially with how well everything seems like going without even thinking much on any of our recent memories either, which does feel quite relieving too, regardless how odd circumstances feel still. But this group feels fairly secure here already as far as anyone else can gather too. Maybe too much perhaps considering who will be facing down shortly afterwards once morning approaches. So best stay awake then. For now, however, nobody worries about whatever issues may emerge, soon as nothing has changed as of yet in regards what they want here, even with these questions arising. And that makes everybody feel far less anxious now, which is something else we've never really dealt with before, at least recently. But even with this all occurring within ourselves without knowing it, none seem particularly pleased either when thinking on this problem further, though. If only we knew. Even so, this group of young individuals continue on with no more than 1 hour between stopping each step they make towards the goal, reaching the town itself. How will things play out for us here then, too? Who knows really as time passes on by. Jonathan had finally decided after so long to give in and admit defeat. His life, as one might expect given this situation, could go any other directions really, especially with others being involved. But he's happy about being offered another option rather than just simply surviving here alone too, which might lead to other ideas coming along too, even though it's uncertain just when that moment arrives, or even whether or not these people really care all that much about anything beyond living comfortably. So here goes then. I do not believe anyone here has a right to question anyone or anything about this land, nor how we should live here, because in reality there is nobody right about anything. With that statement, everyone stopped moving around altogether. Their heads hung low while looking away for some time now, though not because of disagreement or confusion really, but rather out respect rather than shameful behavior either way, considering the situation we found ourselves in. Anyways, which probably wouldn't warrant mentioning either way, considering everyone was still rather shocked anyways about all events unfolding before anybody could even grasp even just small parts from each of our individual situations. Though perhaps the real issue arises in terms asking whether or not we have been offered choices already about everything without noticing too, which is more than likely since everyone involved seems pretty confused at the moment, though I would imagine it's probably not due solely to having no idea either. Even still, all eyes stayed on me until finally Jonathan broke the silence once more, stating, "Well, then it might be nice getting some directions."
Oh. I was... Wait till I'm carried.
Before trying to talk further, in response. At this point, he stood up abruptly, making his chair scrape across tiles loudly. His gaze traveled through me before turning directly towards Sarah, then over toward our youngest member, of whom I barely could see behind those bright green eyes without getting blindsided every few moments or so. "What about that mystery child then? What do we know?" I wasn't really surprised about this, since Jonathan often asks strange things of himself before others. Even going so far recently as having spoken out loud asking whether anyone nearby might happen know their name or location yet, though not. Surprisingly, nobody ever seemed aware either. So instead there was only silence left amongst everyone gathered here, with him leading the conversation onwards, eventually turning towards asking whether such things as names might matter right then. Though I'd argue they always seemed important enough considering current circumstances. As a matter of fact, this question appeared so pressing that no one seemed entirely able answering fully, except with vague terms referring vaguely as possible options which weren't even guaranteed anyway given our positions. Maybe nothing at all. That last bit almost sounded like an accusation directed directly towards Jonathan himself.
Okay, that's it for now. I'm just procrastinating from a job application. That's what we're doing. Hence what future